Today, we'll talk about biggest trader mistakes and how to avoid them. Why 99% of traders still keep doing it. We'll talk about everything: stop loss hunts, liquidity pools, smart money concepts, order blocks, optimal trade entry. Everybody talks about trading strategies, but nobody talks about how to be a better trader. Today will be the day you'll learn the secrets of pro traders, stop loss positioning, multi-level targets. We have so much to cover. If you're ready, let's start. Welcome our free trading course. We only talk about price action trading strategies and smart money concepts. With this video, you'll learn how to become winner trader from a losing trader. If you are looking for a structured table of contents, I set it up for you. You can find it on Google Drive or directly from my website, which is in the description. It is important to watch videos in order to fully understand everything. Let's talk about the biggest problem of all traders: bias addiction. This was one of the trades that I took last week. Let's observe it. Checking the price action, notice the imbalance above, fully filled. Along the way, it clears some liquidity and finally checks the deeper order blocks. I noticed that price react here. Look at the wicks. Let's see the action in the 1-minute chart. With the opening of the New York session, I noticed certain structures happening. First, the pre-market, the hunt for liquidity, swing failure pattern. And then a very strong break creates a market structure shift with displacement, huge, powerful candlesticks. If you check the 2 minutes chart, you'll notice the imbalance and a balanced price range right here. This is the 1-minute chart, remember. And checking other structures on top, the order block, and any possible imbalances. Seeking reliable targets is our main business. Notice the runner's liquidity at the bottom and the imbalance along the way. This was the trade that I took. I cushioned my stop loss up to the order block against a deep pullback. I made 2 mistakes here. Let's talk about my mistakes. First, I did not take partials in this imbalance. I should have secured some profits here, and I did not do that. And I closed the position before break-even. Not so much profit for this trade. My second problem was my bias. I knew something was wrong. In the high time frames, bias will not change quickly. In the low time frames, bias can change a lot. With 1-minute time frame, many up and down trends, finding inducements from different levels. If you are a scalper, you should never be obsessed with a bias. It will destroy you. You must adapt to the final price action. 99% of traders are bias addict, because I was one of them. This creates the difference between winners and losers. You must be 100% objective and keep analyzing the situation all the time. Okay, let me analyze the exactly same day from another perspective. Notice this giant imbalance keeps supporting the price, and this perfect equal lows below it. Notice this wick, what is it doing? Fully filling the imbalance and hunting the equal lows, basically induced the price. How did I miss all this that day? I do not know. I could be tired or not focused. Some days your analysis will be wrong. Whatever you do, you will miss things. It could be a depressing day, a family issue, a partner issue, or another personal issue. Never be hard on yourself if your analysis lacks some days. As humans, we cannot avoid this. Okay, checking the same exact day in 1 minute, focusing on really low time frames. As you remember, the price was externally induced in 5 minutes, powering up the price for a reaction. Notice this break right here, keeping the bullish structure intact. Then the imbalance. By using the optimal trade entry, check if it is close to the OTE zone, and if it is cheap enough in the discount area. Right after that, notice this equal highs. It's very tiny, but this can pull the price for us. And notice the imbalance above. I just love seeing these two close to each other, equals and fair value gaps. At the top, we have our possible runner liquidity. Price does not always hunt these, as we saw in my first trade. This is why partials are extremely critical when it comes to the imbalances. All good. Price is cheap in OTE, price is induced enough, we have clear targets. What are we missing? The entry. Notice that market structure shift right here creates two huge green candlesticks and imbalances. Now this should have been the right trade of the day. I did not take this one. However, this was the correct trade. Price induced in 5 minutes. The price is now induced in 1 minute. The double inducement for a powerful reaction. The good thing, day was not over. I switched my bias from short to long instantly. No obsession, no force, no bias addiction. If I was obsessed and kept opening short trades, I could have lost a lot of money. Now, I missed the move with Bitcoin and started looking at Ethereum. Notice this break right here. This move initiated a bullish structure. By using optimal trade entry, determining where the price is cheap after New York opening. Check this hunted liquidity right inside the OTE zone, which was our inducement. Up until now, everything I say is crap. What I need is a target. Without a target, all I do is meaningless. Notice this imbalance and the perfect equal highs. When I see this, I start crying because I know that I'm gonna make good money that day. Look what else here, another equal highs. So it is like a heaven setup, imbalance and double equal highs. Notice the structure shift and the break of structure after MSB. Now, why I did not use the MSB? Because I was dealing with Bitcoin around that time. So the basic entry style, OTE in OTE, optimal trade entry inside another optimal trade entry. This was the trade that I took that day. So, what is the lesson here? Obsession will end your trading life. Bias addiction will destroy your account. Greediness will make you lose money. Before we finish, let me talk about a random setup that I missed. So you will need to see and accept the idea. You will miss setups no matter what, even after 50 years experience. Notice this liquidity sweep at the bottom, forming a nice power of 3 setup for us, creating the manipulation. And at the top, very clear equal highs as target, and of course the imbalance. And the other block, 3 key structures that may pull the price up. Notice the structure shift right at this point, leaving multiple imbalances to use for logical entry points. And notice these lovely micro equal lows. Okay, what I did here was simple. I set a limit order right below the equal lows and cushioned my stop loss to the deep imbalance. In my opinion, it would be better if it hunted and moved. But this trade is gone to the target without me. There is nothing I can do about it. I was right about the target and bias, but not the entry. It just happens. Do not bother with this. Move on quickly. This will happen thousands of times. Okay, folks, this is it. This is how you fix your mistakes and move on. These are great trading strategies for scalpers and day traders. I hope you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you. Please take care and see you soon.